Good evening. მოგესალმებით ყველას. ფესტივალის ფინალური საღამოა და ვიწყებთ დისკუსიით მწერლის იზოლაციასა და იძულებითი იზოლაციის შესახებ. ამ ორ ფენომენს შორის განსხვავებაზე ვისაუბრებთ და იმაზე თუ რამდენად არის საერთოდ მწერლობა განმარტოვებული პროფესია. ჩვენი პანელის მონაწილეები არიან ივა ფეზუაშვილი, ქართველი მწერალი, იმან ჰუმაიდანი, მწერალი ლიბანიდან, რომელიც ამჟამად საფრანგეთში ცხოვრობს, პატა შამუგია, პოეტი, მთარგმნელი და პენ-ცენტრის პრეზიდენტი და ბლეიკ კრაუჩი, ამერიკელი ფანტასტი მწერალი. გადავალ ინგლისურზე და ვისაც გსურთ რომ თარგმანით მოისმინოთ ეს დისკუსია, გთხოვთ აიღოთ ყურსასმენები და მოусმინოთ ჩვენი მთარგმნელის ხვას. So this is the discussion that we partially covered last year with Bata. If you remember, we were talking about the poetry and state of poetry in the times of pandemic with Charles Bernstein and Michael Palmer. And we mentioned that even though there is this stereotype and the notion that writing is a solitary profession and, well, a lot of things can be solitary in the times of working. But we were talking about the stereotype that people were thinking that maybe the situation that pandemic put upon us maybe wasn't even that bad for the writers. But in the end, the conclusion that we ended up having was that, on the contrary, the process of writing, the process of creation, the process of going to the sense, of writing is very much sociable, and you really need to interact with the world. You need to have the world as it is, as you're used to. You need to have it as wide and as involving people as it can be. I would just start with the first question, and then I would move to Bata. With Iman, for example, you have 3 children, and there is also this famous letter that I can refer to of Virginia Woolf about having the importance of having your own space, a room of one's own, especially for a woman, in order to be able to create something, to write something. How has your life, your family life influenced the way how you work, how you take the process of writing a novel?
Well, it's a very complicated thing for me because this issue of writing started even before I had children. Like I was living in a society where writing is for men, not for women, and the word W-O-R-D is for a man, not for a woman, and I had to fight in a way to write, but not to show that I'm writing because I was ashamed to say I'm a writer. I'm talking about the age of, I was 20 years old. When I got married, I chose a man who had PhD in France, and I thought, wow, he will understand my need for writing. And then when I had children, I used to write late in the night when everybody sleeps. Even when my husband used to sleep, I go to to the living room where the first novel was writing by hand, and I write my novel, and it took me like 9 years to say, hey, I'm a writer, I need my space.
Hello everybody. Okay. Hello everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, dear participants, for taking part in this wonderful event. As Nuka mentioned, by the way, Nuka put me here as a moderator. Maybe she thinks that I'm a good expert in isolation. Well, why not? We are all writers here, so we have some experience in this. And as Nuka mentioned, we discussed these things, but it would be more interesting to understand what these writers think about the same issue, like isolation as a writer's professional job. Did this pandemic help you somehow, or did it damage your writing agenda, or maybe it has nothing changed it's an option also.
Hello. I think the living through the pandemic was definitely a detriment to my writing process because I get so much inspiration from being able to travel and come to places like this and go to cities. I live in the mountains in Colorado in a small town, which is great to be there to write, but I take a lot of energy and inspiration from traveling to other parts of the world, and that even if it doesn't exactly work into my book, the experience of meeting new people and seeing new places is really important for my process, I discovered. And so even as some of the restrictions from COVID started to lift in America, I could just feel this weight coming off of my shoulders, and I felt much more inspired to write, and I felt the writer's block sort of lifting like a cloud off of me.
Maybe the same question goes to...
Yeah, because in both cases, with Eva's case and Blake's case, they don't only work on novels and written word, they work with visuals too. You work in production, yes. So maybe let's expand on the subject of how are those two different and how this situation, this isolation affected either one or the other.
Okay, now let's first answer on your second question. Like in film industry, everything was shut down, even commercial projects in Georgia. I think only banks were able to shoot some commercial videos for them, like couple of 2 or 3 in whole year. So in writing, actually I was working on something. I was working on Bunkeri, and I was with the help of you guys. I went to the La Coruña and I do my residency in Spain. So I was really focused when on writing when the COVID-19 hit us, and it hit us really hard. Yeah, and to be true, it helped me to focus on the working, and I was not distracted with this video stuff and other things. But the strange thing was, did you remember that lockdown period? Like we have the lockdown before 11 o'clock. After 11 o'clock, you are not able to go outside. So it was really strange. If you're working at night and you want to work outside your house, it's like, oh, I'm stuck here, and I'm stuck really badly. Eh? And I think main thing with the self-isolation and you're isolated because of the world is that in one case you can escape, and in another case there is no escape, and you are against with a huge enemy, which is you, by the way. Yeah, you're face-to-face with yourself, and yeah, that was the worst part of the pandemic for me, that I was against myself, and he never let me do something what he does not want it, and I won. Yeah.
Yourself?
I against I. Yeah. Messy with it.
Yeah. Would you like to add something? Please.
Yeah, when I read this question, when I received the program and I read this question, my thinking went somewhere far from the direct meaning of this question. It went to my friends in Syria who really they are in coercive isolation. And some of them we succeeded in helping them. PEN Lebanon, we succeeded in helping them to leave Syria through ICON process and through PEN International process. But still, I have a friend with whom we have direct weekly contacts. He's in his apartment. He cannot get out. Once he got out, and a barrage, a military checkpoint, they broke his arm and his leg just because they read one article he wrote against them. And now he's trying to leave. He is really in coercive isolation. Sometimes I feel ashamed to say during a pandemic I was in coercive isolation. I cannot call it coercive. I was in isolation that I chose because I was in France, and they gave us like 1 hour or 2 hours per day to go out. So it's not a coercive isolation. It's something for my benefit, but I think of other people, other writers, who really they are in coercive isolation.
Yes, of course. I mean, the subject covers a lot of things, and among them, you know, serious reasons for that, and serious circumstances and countries like that where it happens. It's just maybe it's very condescending to assume that this is something serious, but you know, the rest of the world where there is not an armed conflict, it hit us also, and it was something different. But yeah, there is tragedy, and then there is the something, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's expand this topic, you know, one way or another. As you all know, literature always has an instant, quick reflection on the current events, and it was shocking somehow to see that you have no current literature about pandemic, no new movies about pandemic, and I don't know what's the
We are
reason.
still in the process.
Why?
That's why, yeah. We are still in the process, yeah? It's not ended yet.
Yeah, but you know, it's
So we are discovering new stamms from Delta
several
to...
years.
Yeah.
2 or 3 years so since it began. So
I'm not sure, but some Georgian writer published already a book about that topic,
Yeah.
And that, in the Intellect Publishing. And
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
we are not distant from it
Jabazar
yet, you know.
wrote.
I think the main thing there is that we are not distant from these events right now. Yeah, we need time to at least breathe for a second. And what was that to think about that? And right now, 5,000 plus people are getting ill every day in Tbilisi, in Georgia, in general in Georgia. So come on. It's early, but maybe it's a really good topic for you, yeah, for the fantasy writers, yeah.
The question being, any new ideas, novels coming out of the pandemic? Yeah. It's weird. I have resisted against writing about it. I feel like I've lived through it, and everyone in the world has lived through it, and I don't want to I don't want to watch movies or read books about the pandemic. I'm curious about the isolation, the forced isolation it put us all through, but I don't want to read literal stories about it. I feel like I've been inundated with them. I feel like that's all I've thought about, all I've seen on the news for the last 2 years. I want to put it behind me and move forward and think about new stories and new ideas. And what is interesting to me is the idea of what does the world look like on the other side of this? What did we all learn or not learn through this period of isolation? That's what interests me.
Yeah, but you know, post-apocalypse has always been a subject of literature. Do you think that maybe those writers never even imagined that, you know, they want to write, but they don't really want to imagine that it happens, right? So do you think that some of those writers will get something out of this, an inspiration, or they will just, this will be the blank? For example, if I think of, I keep saying last year, and I mean 2019. I'm still not used to, I skip 1 year, and I feel that it's unfair that my age changed during this period. So do you think that this period will be blank in the minds in the creative mind? So I think people might omit this and continue writing as they used to. What do you think about that?
Well, it's interesting. I think my big takeaway, I don't know if it's the blankness of it, but it's how quickly we all became accustomed to the huge death tolls. Like if someone 4 years ago had said, like in our country, in America, I think maybe 600,000 or 700,000 people have died of COVID-19, which is an extraordinary number. It's more that people than were killed in our Civil War. It's more, I think we have eclipsed how many people died in the Spanish flu. Unbelievable. And there were early in the process, as we were realizing how bad this was, I remember moments of fear and like terror and wondering, what if this is going to just be a permanent change? What if this is just the new normal? But we adapted to it also so quickly. We are such an adaptable species. We became so accustomed to sort of this new level of misery and imposition. That is sort of the, I guess, enduring impression it will leave on me.
Yeah, there is something that happened to me during lockdown. I was in Paris, and I'm living in a building where I have like 7 neighbors. It's a 3-story building. It's not very big. And lockdown helped me, first of all, to know the names of my neighbors. Usually, I used to know their names only from the letterbox. We only say hello when we stand in front of the elevator waiting for the elevator, and the moment we step out of the building, even if we see each other, there is no hello. While during lockdown, we started visiting each other. And I discovered, for example, my neighbor who lives on the first floor, who is 73 years old, she has early signs of Alzheimer. I never felt of that before. Like every time she asks me how many children I have, every time she meets, she asks me where I was, if I was outside in the supermarket. Or I got to know my neighbors. I got to know their families. And this is the parallel life that I was living during lockdown. And I have a lot of stories out of this very narrow socialization that I lived for almost 1 year.
Very good point. Okay, let's continue this positive vibe. Well, you know, Iman showed some positive side of the pandemic, and Eva, you did it somehow affect it in a positive way, or even your mundane life changed somehow, has changed?
This pandemic showed me that most of the Georgians are really pessimist, you know, because they think the worst already happened. No, darlings, it comes right now. There be some kind of optimism. You know. Sorry, yeah. So everything the worst, I think, is there in future. Yeah, ahead. Yeah, sorry.
You think so?
Yeah. It was like first act of the horror movie.
What gives you the this idea? Like, what inspires you to think this?
Okay, we will somehow fight and we will win in this COVID war, yeah? But after that, everything, like the mindset and thoughts and ideas will change, because how we live that way was not the correct way, yeah? And there is something, it's called the climate changing, yeah? And so it does not matter if we fight and we will win in the COVID war, or we will publish the books, or we will do amazing stuff. So we are dying, not slowly, by the way. In 2030, it will be like unstoppable already, this climate thing. So, smile.
Okay. You made us a little bit sad.
How many persons, I mean, there are 5 here, did you experience the happy hour through Zoom, for example?
You mean drinking through the Zoom?
Yes.
Wow.
We used to do it last year. We prepare everything on the table on our terrace, and we have friends with whom we used to spend the afternoon before dinner, and we do our cocktail, our aperitif, and then through Zoom we talk. It's something new. I mean, I don't want to say, well, life was beautiful. No, people died and we were locked down, but I'm amazed with this energy and effort human being every day does to show life, to show that he's alive, that he still has signs of life. And it's not only us. I mean, when I think of the Lebanese, like every afternoon, thanks God they kept having internet in Lebanon. Every afternoon we do this. We know that we have a lot of fear to have COVID, to lose our beloved, but at the same time we are fighting because life is much, much more stronger.
Yeah, as for Zoom parties,
There are two
I
very
also
different standpoints and mindsets here, yes, and yours and Eva's, because he's such a pessimist, and you seem to be seeing beauty in this.
Yeah, there is quite good balance here. So as for the Zoom parties, yeah, I also had such an experience, and it was a little bit sad, because we are Georgians and we are very touchy people. We love when we touch each other during the conversation, and touching shoulders, and so on. And it was like it's very artificial. It did not make any sense. So I think this virtual reality still is not that powerful. It cannot change our mindset, at least my personal mindset. And it would be interesting. What do you think, especially you are more experienced in this field, can this virtual reality entirely replace our real reality? And because it partially has changed.
It does seem to be replacing our real reality. Almost all of my meetings are still on Zoom. It's very strange to start thinking of people just as little boxes on screens. And, when you get more than 3 on a Zoom, everyone's interrupting each other. You can't understand anything, and it just gets impossible to truly communicate. I don't know. I wonder if that is the future of our interactions, especially as if COVID is here to sort of stay and it's going to just be waves going up and down. If it's going to continue to divide us, and this is the only way that we can experience each other is through this virtual reality. I think that it is something that we would ultimately adjust to, just as we adjusted to the death tolls, as we adjusted to each new restriction that came down. I think it would be painful, but then I think we're a super adaptable species. I think it would become our new normal.
Well, can I ask a question? Like, what did you feel, Eva? What did you feel, and you and Bleik, when everything has opened, you found yourself walking in the street and seeing tens of people passing by? What was your first instinctive reaction after the lockdown?
I think the most emotional moment I felt was when I got my first shot.
Yeah.
When I got my first Pfizer shot, it was very emotional because we had all these people in our community who had volunteered to help everyone feel comfortable with getting these shots, because a lot of people were very afraid because a lot of people hadn't had vaccines since they were kids, and it had this feeling of this big. I didn't have anything to do with inventing the vaccine, but you had this feeling of humanity working together to overcome this huge, terrible thing. And I hadn't really experienced that in my lifetime. I was born in 1978, and yes, my country has gone to wars, but none of the wars that they were always far, far away. And prior to COVID, the biggest impact on me was probably 9/11, when the planes crashed into the World Trade Towers. So to see the community finally coming together, there was an incredible sense of optimism and of what can be accomplished when humanity decides to cooperate and work together. So that was a really, I've got actually really emotional as you get your shot and you have to sit for a minute to wait and make sure you don't fall over. And it was just a really beautiful experience.
I think first time I went outside, it was when I had a book presentation in the yard of the writer's house, and then we went to the Tedaina Square, it's called, like there are some bars, and I saw a lot of youngsters sitting on the grass, and I was like proud and scary at the same time, because I was scared because, come on, we are doing it the same, we will do the third or fifth way because of this, but proud again because maybe that we are adaptable, and so we don't lose something what was like 2 years ago with us, and okay, maybe we had this rough 2 years, but still we can laugh, we can smile, and throw the plastic in the grass. Yeah, it was I was proud and scary at the same time.
Yeah, I always considered myself as an introvert who did not like overcrowded places and always wanted to avoid places where more than 10 people and so on. And during this pandemic, I realized that I'm not an introvert at all, and I love people, and I love when I see many people.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing.
Right
yeah?
now.
I'm introvert when I want, and I must have the chance to be socially active. Yeah, all the time. You can't be introvert or extrovert, or you must change it. Yeah, time by time. And this 2 year was like, yeah, we are all introverts right now.
Yeah, as for me, I think it will take a long time for me to try to be able to write about this experience, because up till now, I feel there is something wrong while I hug my daughter. Like we stayed 1 year without kissing each other, like, hello, mommy, hi. And sometimes I miss her a lot, and I kiss her in her back while she's turning. And when everything opened, up till now, up till this moment, I feel when I'm hugging her, I need to learn again how to kiss and hug. Though she's my daughter, so what's about other people with whom we have like distant relations? Still, I need, I think, a long time to transform these feelings into words, into something written.
But I mentioned that we Georgians are really touchy people, and there was like rule, not written rule, but when two men were meeting with each other, they were shaking hands and they were kissing each other on the cheek. Because the pandemic, that thing changed. They're only bumping right now. Let's see some bright side of it. Yeah, it changed.
And up till now, when I receive people for dinner, when I open the door, I ask, did you start hugging? Because I don't dare to approach. I want to see if they want to hug or not. It's something very deep. Now I'm expressing it in a very maybe superficial way, but I think it's something deep. It will mark something in us. I don't know how.
Yeah, etiquette I changed. Well, the least. Yeah. Do you think that, Eva, for example, do you think that, this coercion, well, Iman mentioned that this is not the real coercion like the obligation, restriction, and then sitting down and thinking that, I might have been home today, but I wanted to choose it myself and, not being told to do that. Does that anger and discontent interfere with your productivity, with your creation? No? And the same question to you too.
Really straight rules. I'm working, with my own program, and if I'm writing from 12 p.m., for example, to 8 p.m., and it does not affect in any type of my work. The only thing was that I like to foot walking, to take a walk, and that was the strange thing that I was not able to do that. But hey, you can buy the stroller, or not the stroller? For feet trading, you can do it.
So that's what you did?
No, I have one.
You moved it inside. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
What about you, Iman?
Do you mean intrinsic, like in normal life, not during COVID?
No, I mean, you would, in normal life, you would choose to stay in at night,
Yes,
you know, because
yes.
there was the job to do.
Yeah.
But that would be your choice.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
Otherwise, like in these situations, for some period of time, every day was like this, and you had a 1 hour window to go out. Was this making you angrier, you know, more frustrated, and was it interfering with your ability to write, to create?
Well, my frustration, most of the time was because I have to go out. Not the contrary, because I'm married, my husband has a very wide social life, and we always invited, and always I have to find ways to stay at home. It's just the contrary for me, and it's for me it's heaven when nobody is at home, when I'm alone. It's like that's what I really want.
In the pandemic, it must have changed. You wouldn't be alone, right?
Never in
Yes.
pandemic I was not alone. No, my husband left work also, and his nephew was with us because he had to go to Lebanon and he couldn't, so he stayed with us. So it wasn't a very comfortable period for almost for 2 months before we had some free hours to go out, and it was tough for me because I needed to be in my office to finish what I had to finish, and it wasn't easy. It was not easy. Yeah.
Your problem was that you were locked, but not alone.
I wasn't
Yeah.
alone. No.
Maybe you too, because you have also children.
But I can't complain as many as women because I saw it with my own eyes that it was way much harder for my wife than for me because I consider myself as a good father, but still, you know, the children are very much sticked to their mother because they are really like young. And so it was way much harder for her. And I somehow managed to give myself 2 or 3 hours to write. And so I can't complain about it right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Go girl.
Blake?
I kept writing during the pandemic and the lockdowns, but I found in looking back, it wasn't very good. I think it was just very distracting. It was very hard to stop watching the news. It was very hard because it was never, I don't know, the news was never good, but it was never like totally bad enough to fully pull you in. It was a very weird experience. I was surrounded by my family. I had 3 kids and my wife, and I really felt bad for our friends who didn't have anyone, and we had a number of friends who were single, and they just went months without having really any human contact because in parts of America you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, okay. When I was thinking about this topic, I took some quick look at the articles about isolation, and I've discovered that there are some philosophers who, for example, Plotinus, the major Greek philosopher, who once famously proclaimed, "I'm ashamed to have a body." And I think this was the first gesture against isolation, because we are all stuck in our bodies, we are isolated in our bodies, and I know it sounds like a very complicated and a little bit philosophical. Why not? Philosophical question. But do you have such feeling, or it's just very ancient Greek abstract feeling regarding stacking in your bodies, or is it's maybe some kind of coerced isolation? So we can keep talking about this topic, Iman.
I think I can, I can write in a cafe, a full of people cafe, where they are talking all together, where there is the TV on a football match. I can still write my novel, but I cannot do this if I'm with somebody who's very near to me, like my husband, my son, my daughter, in an apartment. Because it's not the crowd that distracts me. It's not just the contrary. I mean, when I hear people talking at a neighbor table in a cafe, sometimes I come out with a conversation in the novel. One time, a woman was saying to her friend, "This is life. Yes, this is life." I mean, these two sentences, I can use them and come out with something related to what I'm writing. But the problem when you are with people who are expecting from you to be present, and I'm an absent-minded person. Like if I'm with my family, sometimes I forget that they are there because I'm absorbed in something I'm writing or in a problem I'm facing in my writing. I can't find a solution. And I'm wanted to be there. I'm wanted to be present, especially in the lockdown period. And my personality is always like that. I'm an absent-minded. And my first novel that Darijan translated into Georgian, B as in Beirut, there are 4 women characters. One of them is called Liliane. And during the war, Liliane was sitting there with their 2 kids, locking herself many years before the COVID, but because there was bombardment outside. And she was afraid that her children go out, but at the same time, she's absorbed in her inner world. And her children said, "Mama, can we eat chocolate?" And she says, "Yes." "Can we open the fridge?" "Yes." "Can we play on the couches?" "Yes." And then one of her children said, "Can we go out and play in the street?" And she said, "Yes." And then suddenly she remembered that the street is full of bombardment, and she realized that no, she shouldn't say yes. She was saying yes as if she's telling them, "Please let me alone. Let me be by myself." So it's awful. I mean, it's awful to be with people you love, people you care, while you are in a situation where you need to write.
I will answer your question, but I can talk about Iman's thoughts. You know what was the trickiest part? For example, I was in the middle of my novel, and I was working on a new character. And when you're working on the character, you need someone to base the character on. Yeah, so no one was in the streets, nothing was working. For example, that woman was hairdresser, and I was really lucky because I had a neighbor, and she works really close to me, and I based my character on her. But if I wanted someone new, how? There was only my friends in the Zoom, by the way, and only my family members. And yes, they are really interesting people, but not for the book, maybe. Yeah, that was tricky.
Yeah, Iman, would you like?
Just, I wonder how we were before lockdown. I mean, how we were as writers before lockdown. Because lockdown, it was like 1 year only, 1 year, few months. But before, we had also experiences of isolation, long periods of isolation. And I don't know to what extent writers had obliged isolation. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I need that you answer me. I mean, for me, yes, I stayed many times obliged to stay because of the bombardment in my city, but it's not the case of Bleiq, neither, I don't know if it's your case.
No, we had the war, 5-day war in 2008 against Russia, so, but how to say, I was 18 back then, and yeah, it was like trauma for me, but it does not touch this much, and I can say that I'm a victim of that war. It will be like for my side, because we have a lot of Bada is, what is the name of that?
Refugee from
Abkhazia, so maybe he can answer way better than I.
So as for isolation, I know a guy who always wished to be imprisoned to have have free time to finish his novel. I don't know whether it's a useful, thing, but still there are some people who wish for, coercion. There is a novel, Eyes of Dark. Maybe you must know that this is a science fiction. And in this novel, there is precisely described all the events all the current events regarding pandemic. You know how it starts? How it started? It started in Wuhan in this novel also.
In Wuhan.
Yeah, and this novel is
It's a proverb?
Was written in the beginning of 20th century. So it was like some kind of prediction. Yeah.
It is, but not all the details repeat itself. It says Wuhan. The virus is called like Wuhan 001 or something like that.
Then there is COVID-19 also.
I don't think so. Maybe, yeah. Well, yeah, that's also an interesting subject. Maybe how fiction can predict
the future.
Or like.
I think it's a prerogative of Simpson show, and I must.
Yes, but other than the kinds of isolations that we listed and literal isolations, there are the situations where maybe a country or a society is more distant from the rest of the world. For example, in some periods of Soviet Union, Georgians weren't able to freely travel or go to the US, because of this Cold War paranoia. And the question I had maybe to our Georgian author
I was not
is
born
that
back then.
I know that you weren't born back then. How do you think this is one of the examples of an international exchange, right? The festival that we have, or the projects that we have, or the residency which
Blake
you went
mentioned
to?
amazing things that you must travel to get some new inspirations. Yeah, you can't be you can't have anything in Tbilisi. Yeah, and you must see like at least how we can write about ocean. We don't have an ocean here. Yeah, you must see the. I was so close to drop the F word. So yeah, you need the inspiration, you need the travel, and the main thing for me was like in this. I went to this international writing program in Iowa City. So the main thing was I met with 27 writers from 26 different countries, because we had the 2 from Venezuela, because back then terrible things was happening in Venezuela, but it happens right now also. Yeah. So the communication with modern authors and to exchange your ideas, it helps. And when you are in pyjamas and only functional from here to there in the Zoom, it's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard to get inspired by something. Maybe someone found there some catchy ideas, but in my case, I could not really. I just finished what I started in 2019, and that's all. I'm stuck in that book. And, yeah.
You've been to Iowa?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I understood you right, it gave you something, right?
Yeah, a lot of.
It gave you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about that in Tbilisi. It's really hard to feel yourself as a writer, because it's kind of hobby. I'm not telling that we are really.
It's an extra job. You have a day job, and then there is you plus
yes,
you're a
we
writer.
love it and we appreciate it, but still, we don't have like too many events to happen, and it's amazing. Yeah, what's happening right now, but it's once in the year. Yeah? So in Iowa, we had this public readings, panel discussions, and the communication between the writers. That part was amazing. But to be through the city is like, nothing special.
Yeah. I think we have many common points, like writers, that we never experience the life of a writer full stop. I'm a writer, a mother, a wife, somebody who has a lot of work in associations. I write articles, I translate, and I divide myself into many things. And sometimes I'm obliged to be alone, sometimes I'm obliged to be with other people. And even during the pandemic, I have to see some people, very like from the family. Like, it's an experience, I think it's different from yours?
I think so. I don't know. When you were talking about needing to get away to write and not being able to do that, I think one of the things that's really occurred to me lately is that, and I think COVID helped me understand this, is you give up to really be a writer. You are giving up a lot of your life. You are sacrificing being present, because it is very, very difficult for me to turn off the part of my brain that's thinking about a story or trying to figure out a character or trying to figure out a certain plot. And what you're sacrificing being present with your loved ones sometimes. You're sacrificing peace, because I think to be a writer is to be anxious almost all the time, because you're looking for those moments of peace when the story is going well and there's nothing like it. I mean, that's why I do it, because that small little sliver of time when everything's clicking along and you feel like this is what I was meant to do and I'm doing it. But those are few and far between. Most of the time it's incredibly difficult. And I was thinking about how to sum up what this pandemic was for me, and I thought it's really about underscoring how much you give up to be a writer, and it's tough. And it's tough on everyone around you as well, because they're looking for you to be present. Because if you're not a writer, it's very difficult to understand what it is like to constantly have your brain churning and imagining characters that don't exist and people that don't exist. I mean, some people might say that means you're crazy.
Based on what Eva mentioned, those characters don't exist, but you really need them to exist in real life in order to, have an inspiration. And we have internet today, which might make it seem like it's okay, and it's even more accessible. Like we were supposed to host some authors. For example, you yourself last year, and we were able to shoot you on Zoom, even though the actual happening didn't take place. But is it really the substitution? What happens online?
It's a surrogate of yeah.
No, there's no comparison. I guess I'm going to contradict what I said earlier, but there's no comparison at all. I would be okay if I never had another Zoom for the rest of my life.
Yeah. It's really shame that it became the dream, your dreams too small, right? No, God, please take away Zoom calls.
Zoomless country, yeah, I agree with you. It's tough to be a writer, and it's even tougher when you have just 1 hour to talk about isolation, and we almost exhausted our time.